This is the Mets Postcast, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
On a night in which the Mets had a very slim margin at the start of play for the third and final wild card spot in the National League, they did their part, and it looks like they're getting some help from across the world of baseball. Welcome in to the Mets Postcast here live on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. The Postcast host, Chris Schubert, here with you, recapping the Mets defeating the San Diego Padres in the opener of this three-game series, final of 8-3. The Mets offensively carrying over the momentum from their walk-off win on Sunday. That's where we will start tonight's postcast, because perhaps the Mets have found themselves again.
This is what you'll be talking about.
The day off in between Sunday's walk-off win courtesy of the Pete Alonso home run and tonight's 8-3 win over San Diego provided us a lot of time to think about it. A lot of time wondering if Sunday was just a small blip or if the Mets snapping that 8-game losing streak, having that moment at home, Pete Alonso hitting the big home run would be the start of something. We use the analogy here on the postcast, the snowball rolling down the hill and turning into an avalanche. And you knew that tonight's game, early in tonight's game, you would find out that answer. We would know if that was just a one-hit wonder, if that was just a small blip, or if the Mets understood and could meet the moment starting tonight. And boy, did they, because this is a very good San Diego team that has come into town. They are playing for something. They're trying to chase down the Dodgers for the NL West crown. The Mets starting play tonight, just a 1.5 game lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks at the beginning of play. And now it feels like we're going to have to end all of these postcasts doing a little scoreboard watching. So we'll get to that a little bit later on here in the postcast. And the Mets needed this one. They needed to show that they could hang with a big boy team. They needed to show that Sunday was not a fluke. They needed to show that they were building some momentum. And I'm not sure if 2 games is enough to say momentum built. But with only, 11 games left on the calendar after tonight, you'll take anything that could maybe spark something for this team. And they got it started early. That 5 spot in the first inning was huge. And I think you saw tonight the Mets offense do it in a bunch of different ways. Early, it was Lindor singling, Soto singling, Alonso singling. That sets up a Nimmo single. So how about 4 straight singles to get the first run across? Then the double play probably got you a little nervous, right? You were probably thinking to yourself, oh no, they're going to waste this chance to jump on Michael King, to get after the Padres early, to put up a big crooked number, to hand Clay Holmes a bit of a cushion on a night where you knew they were going to go to the piggyback, Clay Holmes into Sean Manaea. Lots of good things to say about that here on the show as well. You were worried that they weren't going to be able to capitalize, but you knew once McNeil hit that double that this was a different night. That feels like a turning point in this game. That double to make it 3-0. Baty hits the 2-run shot to make it 5-0. And the Mets were off to the races. And it was just a great night. They added the power late. Baty hit that home run in the first, but it was Mullins, it was Alonso, it was Lindor, all adding on home runs as well. And it was just a direct continuation of what the Mets were able to do in the closing moments of that game on Sunday. And now an 8-game losing streak has been flipped into a 2-game winning streak. And while you'll be scoreboard watching tonight, you will know that nobody could get closer to the New York Mets with their win tonight. And with only 11 games left on the calendar after today, every night that we are able to say that the Mets will not allow anybody to get closer to them is a good night in my book. And so it's really great to see this offense continue what they finished with on Sunday. You can't say that it was the entire game on Sunday. They had only a 2-0 lead before they squandered that, but Lindor setting the tone early with the single to lead off the game that set up the first run, the home run that he had and added afterwards. How about Pete Alonso with multi-hits? I mean, you look up and down the lineup. 3 Mets with multi-hit games tonight. Lindor, Alonso, and Nimmo all contributing. Power. Lindor closing in on 30 home runs. We'll see if he can get there. Alonso hitting his 35th. Cedric Mullins with a big hit tonight. And it feels like, I see some of you asking about it, yeah, I think you can continue to play Cedric Mullins every day right now if you wanted to put him out there. Tyrone Taylor obviously provides you the better defense, but he's hurt. So I think if you want to try to ride after the power that Mullins had tonight in this game, if you wanted to continue to ride that right now, I wouldn't blame the Mets for playing the hot hands with 11 games to go here in this season. So just feels good. Feels good for the Mets to be carrying some momentum. And I'm not a super big believer in momentum taking over large swaths of a season, large lengths and stretches of a season. But man, end of the year, battling for a playoff spot, momentum can carry over game to game. It really can, because it does feel like, doesn't feel it in March or in April, I should say, and in May and in June. Doesn't even feel like it in August, not even the beginning of September. These last 2 weeks feels like every night you turn on SNY, you turn on the broadcast, and you're thinking to yourself, this is a playoff game. Mets have to win this one. And so that's where the momentum can really start to carry over. And it is good to see the Mets have back-to-back bounce-back efforts. They survive on Sunday with the walk-off. They now turned it into something. They didn't just allow that to go to waste, and they did it in a big way. They did it quick. I think that was the more encouraging thing. They jumped all over a really good starter on the other side, and Michael King knocked him out after 3 innings. Gave up 10 hits, 8 earned runs. I mean, they were just all over him, just hard contact after hard contact, and you love to see it. We got to talk about the piggyback between Clay Holmes and Sean Manaea tonight, working perfectly, working as designed, and certainly something that we will see again here when Clay Holmes' spot comes up in the rotation. We'll get to that. The stuff to keep an eye on. There is an unfortunate piece of news that did come out of tonight's game that we'll have to keep an eye on here moving forward with Francisco Alvarez. We will get to all of that and your thoughts here on the other side. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought to yourself, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol, the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And this isn't just hype. A supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. I'm sure with it being September, potentially the playoffs right around the corner, you want to get to a Mets game. Nothing like seeing a baseball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, takes all of the fun out of it. That's why I use Game Time. The app gives advantage back to the fans. Fast, easy, backed by the Game Time guarantee. You're always going to get 100% authentic tickets. They're delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included. The price you see is the price you pay. The app makes it super simple. My favorite feature, the seat view. You can see exactly the view you're going to have from your seats before buying. You're going to know your total up front. There are no surprise fees when you get to the checkout screen. How about the zone deals? Pick the section. Game Time's going to pick the seats, and you save big. Faster, cheaper, less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. How about you download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. NFL season in full swing. FanDuel, making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, how about $300 in bonus bets to use across the app? FanDuel, I love it because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, building that same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Makes all the games more exciting, even whether you're watching your team or you're just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. Quick, easy, the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Back here, Mets Postcast, Locked On Mets YouTube channel, Locked On Mets podcast feed. Chris Schubert with you. We are recapping an 8-3 win for the Mets tonight, a much-needed win. Start of play tonight, the Mets holding on to just a 1.5 game lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks, just a 2-game lead over the Cincinnati Reds and San Francisco Giants. And fresh off that 8-game losing streak, the Mets are in serious danger. They still are in danger of losing that spot, but every time the Mets win, moves their magic number closer to 0 and makes it to where no team can move closer to them in the standings. And the other big story, not just the offense tonight, scoring 8 runs, including that 5-run first, the piggyback worked. At least for tonight, this plan that the Mets had starting Clay Holmes and going to Manaea after that worked. Clay Holmes, 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. The 2 runs, courtesy of 2 solo home runs. That's going to happen. But overall, you knew Clay Holmes came into this night knowing, I really just need to give the Mets 4 or 5 really solid innings. I don't have to worry in the back of my mind about getting into the 6th, getting into the 7th, making this bullpen not have to do a ton of work, because you knew what the game plan was coming in. Clay Holmes did his job. Manaea came in, and to me, he's the bigger story, because that was vintage Manaea. And we say vintage. That was last year's Manaea. That's the Manaea that the Mets brought back on a 3-year deal. The Manaea who allowed just 1 earned run over 5 innings and struck out 4 and just completely dominated the rest of this game here tonight after taking over for Clay Holmes. That's the Manaea that the Mets are going to need. And this piggyback worked. The broadcast has mentioned it. Some beat reporters have mentioned it, that the next time this rotation spot comes up, it could be Manaea starting with Holmes coming out of the pen. And I know some of you may be thinking, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why would you do this? Let me just offer you one potential reason, at least something that I thought of when it was brought up. If we get to the postseason here and the Mets are in a 3-game series, don't you want to feel comfortable utilizing both Holmes and Manaea out of the pen? And I know that's where Holmes was in the past, but this entire year, he's been starting games. And so if you can get him accustomed again, readjusted, reacclimated to the idea of coming out of the pen, if that's the role that the Mets decide is best for the team and for him in the postseason, you might as well use a regular season game to be able to do that. So Manaea now showed you he can come out of the pen, doesn't need to get ready the way a starter would get ready, and he can come in and give you what you need. Now you need to kind of flip the script and get Clay Holmes ready for that. Again, he has more experience to draw off of, so you are obviously more concerned about Manaea being able to do it, but you still want to give Holmes that opportunity. So I have no issue with them flipping this order around the next time out so that Carlos Mendoza can feel 100% comfortable when they are putting together their postseason roster and putting together their postseason plan. They can evaluate both of these guys as they could be starters for me, or they could be starters on the roster, but I can bring them in if one of my young kids, one of the young guys, Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, Brennan Sproat, whoever could be starting for them in the postseason, maybe struggles early. It's the postseason. I got to be able to have a quick hook. Clay Holmes or Manaea could be giving me length, or they could be a game 2, game 3 starter, however it breaks down. So you just want to give the manager, the team, as many options as possible. And so I think that's the reason why you would do the flip. But I mean, this worked to perfection. I mean, this is a perfect night for the Mets. They win the baseball game. The offense carries the momentum from the walk-off on Sunday. The piggyback works perfectly. Manaea looks like the guy that he was a year ago. I mean, other than what happened to Francisco Alvarez, and we'll use this as the transition into the stuff to keep an eye on, as perfect of a night as you can get for the Mets. But unfortunately, it's not absolutely perfect, because Francisco Alvarez, after a pitch earlier in the at-bat came inside on him and he had to duck out of the way, another pitch came inside and hit him right on that elbow, and it was heavily wrapped up after the game when he was in the dugout. Rodriguez, the young reliever young starter pitcher for the Padres, who came into the game, throws hard, threw 101. That was the pitch that hit Alvarez, caught him on the elbow. He was smiling with the ice wrap around his elbow, forearm area in the dugout, so you would certainly think that there was not too much of a concern there, but he's already got the 2-hand injuries as it is, and you just hate to see him, and you saw him double over in pain. I mean, he was really in pain after that one. So certainly something that you don't want to see if you're the New York Mets. Hopefully it's not that big of a deal. Luis Torrens was playing in a minor league game tonight, so he could be back here pretty soon. But Mets would love to have Francisco Alvarez's bat in that lineup, even though he hasn't been great since coming back from the injury. You just know the potential there, and so you just hate to see him getting hit once again. And now I think something that we have to make a part of the stuff to keep an eye on is we got to keep an eye on the scoreboard. And so far as we are sitting here, the Mets got one of the results that they needed. The Reds lost to the St. Louis Cardinals. Yes, the Cardinals still mathematically alive, but they are one of the teams furthest away that is still mathematically eliminated. They're 4 games back. The only team mathematically still alive that is further back than the Cardinals is the Atlanta Braves. So yes, the Cardinals win, but with a Mets win, they can't move any closer. The Reds move to 3 games back. As we speak right now, wrapping up the postcast, the Giants have a 4-0 lead into the second inning over the Arizona Diamondbacks. And after the Diamondbacks won last night to move within 1.5, to move the Giants back to 2, feels like the Giants winning this one is about as perfect a result as you can get if you're the Mets, because it will move the Diamondbacks back, but the Giants will stay just the 2 games back. So you'll push everybody to at least 2.5 games out of that spot. So you create just a little bit of margin of error. And for a team like the Mets, little up and down as of late, playing a good Padres team, they're not going to be easy to roll over in tomorrow's contest. It's good to create that buffer. So it feels like the Giants winning is the perfect outcome. Even though they are a team that is 2 games back, they are further away than the Diamondbacks. So that team sliding further back is about as perfect of an outcome as you can get. So we're keeping an eye on that here. And maybe while you're going to bed this evening, you can keep an eye on that score. It will be David Peterson tomorrow for the Mets in the second game of this 3-game series. The Mets will go for the series win. And really, that's the name of the game right now for this team. You continue to win series. You really don't have to worry about what everybody else is doing. You win series, that should be good enough with this lead with 11 games to go now after tonight. We'll let Brent have the final word here on tonight's postcast. I'm so relieved that the Mets finally listened to the fans, recombining Holmes with Manaea. Now our bullpen can be fully rested, and I'm hopeful that there is a short leash tomorrow. Brent, I'll tell you this. I know the piggyback has been a popular thing. I know I've been a proponent of moving Clay Holmes to the bullpen because he has experience there and piggybacking him. But I do think the Mets understood this. I think they wanted to exhaust every option possible with the starters that they've paid money to, with the starters that are veterans, because by doing this, it further pushes the Mets in the direction of their young kids, Sproat and McLean in particular, starting playoff games. And there is a risk you run with young prospects who have getting close to, if not exceeding their innings limits for the season, being trusted in a big spot in the postseason. So I think the Mets wanted to try everything possible before going to something like this. But the Mets, at the end of the day, are going to do what is right for the team, what they think is in the best chance for this team to win. They went to it tonight. It worked. And yes, Carlos Mendoza, now with 2 days off for his bullpen, Monday and Tuesday, has everybody available to him tomorrow to try to go out there and win this game and aggressively manage to try to win the series. And that's what you should do. Aggressively manage to win this game, to push that lead to potentially 3 games on all these teams. Got to manage aggressively. Don't worry about Thursday. Worry about tomorrow. And that opportunity is in front of David Peterson and the New York Mets. Perhaps a momentum builder tonight for the Mets. The walk-off win started it. They capitalized tonight with a 5-run spot in the first inning. The piggyback between Clay Holmes and Sean Manaea, absolutely perfect. Everything that you wanted to see. And the Mets are getting the results that they need all across the rest of baseball for their heads to hit the pillow tonight, feeling pretty good about the spot that they are in. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you're notified when we go live here on the Locked On Mets postcast on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel and the Locked On Mets podcast feeds. We're back again tomorrow to break down David Peterson's start against the San Diego Padres as the Mets will go for the series win, and they will look to continue to apply pressure on the rest of the teams trying to chase them down for the last spot in the NL wild card. Until then, have a good one, Mets fans.